Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome everyone to the November 17th, 2025 briefing of the Forsyth County Commissioners. And this briefing is for our regular meeting on Thursday, November 20th. We had two discussion items today. You have a Utilities Commission update from Courtney Driver, which I promised she would be first because she she was here a long time and we had to actually adjourn our last meeting. In fact, you can go ahead and come on up to start set up. And we also are going to discuss a discussion item on the size and weight regulations for commercial truck transportation. So the floor is yours, Courtney.
Okay, good afternoon. Thank you for having me back. As you mentioned, I'm going to give an update on Winston-Salem Forsyth County Utilities. And as I've mentioned to you in the past, we manage several capital projects, but I'm just going to go over the capital projects that we partner with the county on. And then I want to talk a little bit about our lead and copper roll, some solid waste management issues, and then I have just a couple slides on our financials, how we ended the fiscal year. FY25. So the first project is the Tanglewood Business Park Sewer Extension. We're partnered with the county on this. The estimated cost of the project as of the 90% drawings is $2.9 million. This includes where the Village of Clemens is also going to extend a short piece up to serve their Public Works Department. The contribution from the Utilities Department is estimated at $250,000. This is per our oversized main policy, so we're going to make the main a little bit larger than what it needs to be for the county's benefit. And then Santec, who is our design engineer, they're finalizing the plans and specifications now. We estimate that it's going to be advertised for construction in December of this year. Then we'll receive bids in January and anticipate that it'll go before the Utility Commission at the February meeting. And just as a reminder, this is a map that it is extending sewer out of the Tanglewood Business Park in the Clemens area. Highway 65 waterline extension. I've briefed the county commissioners on this many times, but we did extend around 13,000 feet of waterline along Highway 65. The work is complete. The contractor is finishing up just a couple of punch list items. There was a community meeting held on October 28th for that community just to really get back in front of them one last time to explain how they can connect to the waterline now that it is available. So the next project is Southeast Forsyth County Sewer Expansion, and we now call it the Wahlberg Road Lift Station Project. I'm going to go into a little bit more detail about this one. It is one of our larger projects with the county right now. Just to give you a little bit of history, or just as a reminder, Forsyth County was allocated approximately $20 million in the FY24 state budget to expand water and wastewater services in southeastern Forsyth County. So at that point, we, the Winston-Salem Forsyth County Utilities, collaborated with the county, City County Planning Department, and Greater Winston-Salem, Inc. to identify areas for expansion that would deliver the greatest benefit to the community. And then in January of 2024, I presented options to this board of how to best utilize those funds. At that point, shortly thereafter, we determined that a site off Wahlberg Road was selected as the optimal location to build a new sanitary sewer lift station, and it was decided that we would build the project with a progressive design build project delivery method. And this is the map showing a rough location. This is just a very high-level sketch drawing. The green squares where the proposed lift station will be. There's proposed gravity sewer in the area, proposed force main, and so you can kind of see the vicinity of where sewer will be expanded. And then just to walk you through what we've done since that happened, since this is progressive design build is a different delivery method than what we're used to, so we wanted to make sure that we had everything lined up. So we decided to request or seek a consultant to help us with owner advisor services. So we put out a request for qualification, and we selected a consultant in September 24 that would help us with the design, build, delivery method. They helped us with contracts, putting out the RFQ, making sure that we just had all of our T's crossed and I's dotted. So an RFQ for the design build services was advertised, and in June of this year, we selected state utility contractors and Hazen as our design build team. We've been working with them and negotiating a scope and fee, and there was a scope and a fee for phase 1 pre-construction services that was on the last week. It was November Utility Commission meeting for approval, and that phase 1 amount is roughly $1.1 million. The current schedule anticipates that we'll get a guaranteed maximum price, and we'll get that price once 75% of the design is complete. So it's estimated that we'll get that in September of 2026, and then construction complete in August of 2027. And I wanted to show you this slide. We presented this to the Utility Commission last week. Because this is a slightly different than what we're used to, just want to walk you through some of the steps. So you can see in Progressive Design Build, we do a procurement where we procure the design build team. And then where it says commission approval, that's the Utility Commission approves the design build contract, which was that phase 1 pre-construction services. There could be potentially two more approvals from the Utility Commission. One, if we decide to procure equipment that might have long lead times, we might want to go ahead and procure that so it can move the project along, pumps, things of that nature. And then there'll be, again, as I mentioned, the construction phase services, which will be, that amount will be determined when we get our guaranteed maximum price later on next year. So switching on to the lead and copper rule, so we've been responding to new regulations. The lead and copper rule was initially established in 1991. There's been some minor changes since then, but most significantly, there was changes in 2021 and then later in 2022. So we're responding to those new regulations. We had to complete an initial service line inventory to identify potential lead sources in the distribution system. And right now, we have determined that we have 48 lead service lines, 642 galvanized requiring replacement service lines, and then there's still around 3,000 unknown where we need to do some more preliminary work, exploratory work to determine exactly what that material type is. The EPA has placed an emphasis on eliminating potential sources of lead in public and private service lines within a 10-year window beginning in 2027, so we're responding to that. There is federal funding available that we are trying to take advantage of. To date, we've been awarded two $2 million loans with 100% principal forgiveness, and we'll use that money to continue that exploratory work, go out there, do some potholing, making sure we're verifying the material type, and replace those service lines once we determine if it's needed. And again, this is service lines, this is on private property, so we'll be working with homeowners to get the access to replace anything that's requiring to be replaced. Switching to our solid waste disposal, this is the landfill tonnage history and projections. I've shared this with you in the past, but the remaining life that we project for the landfill, we base that on a 3-year average of tonnage. We escalate that each year with population growth rate and our in-place density we measure annually. We also assume that our construction and demolition waste at Old Salisbury Road will go to Haynes after it closes in 2029. So we take a lot of factors into consideration when we're determining how much longer we have capacity at the Haynes Mill Road landfill. So we did see significant increases in 2025 at Haynes, 330,000 tons versus 250,000 tons in the previous year, so a significant increase. So record levels of incoming waste, and again, that impacts our capacity there. So right now, the Haynes landfill is projected to be at capacity in 2042, and we are working on, what's the next phase for the landfill and where we're going to take the community's trash after that.
Can I interrupt you? When you
Yeah.
say currently permitted, is there any additional land on the current site that could be expanded?
There is land that we have that is not zoned currently for landfill use. But it could be if it was rezoned, yes.
So how many acres is that? But roughly, just is it a big piece of land?
I'm trying to think. We probably have 400 out there now, so it's significant. It's in the hundreds of acres. I don't know the exact amount of that
Unpermitted
piece.
area, not zoned, is it, I'm sort of picturing the landfill, is it sort of north of the landfill or west of the?
It's west.
Probably north and west.
It's actually west of the landfill, of the current where we're landfilling right now.
Okay. All righty, thank you.
And then the last couple of slides, I just wanted to update you on some financials. So the first two we're going to do are dealing with our solid waste. We have two different enterprise funds and utilities that we manage. So the first one's solid waste. So this is expenditures for July of 2024 through June of 2025. And this is just operating expenditures. The shaded blue is our budgeted amount. The actuals for 2025 are the blue bar, and then the actuals for 2024, so the previous year, is the red bar. So you can see we were our expenditures were below the budget. And on the revenue side, similarly, we've got the budget, which is that shaded blue in the background, with the actuals being the blue bar for 2025, and then the actuals for the previous year being red. So because we had that increase in tonnage that I mentioned earlier, our revenues were higher than what we had budgeted for. Now, on the water and wastewater side, again, expenditures first. We were below the budget with our operating expenditures, a little bit higher than the previous year, but still below our budget. And then revenues, a little bit higher than what we expected on our revenues, but really right in line with what we had budgeted for. And I did want to let you know that these are unaudited. The city is working on our audited financials right now, so this is kind of where we're at right now. And then the last slide, I just want to mention we are going to be issuing two future bond issuance. One for solid waste, and one for water and sewer, and these are for our capital projects. So we're requesting $70 million on the water and sewer side to fund those capital projects, and then $26.5 million on the solid waste side for future capital projects. Both of them we're anticipating to close in December. The water and sewer is a revenue bond, so it's secured by revenue that we receive from our water and sewer rates. And then the solid waste disposal is a little bit different. Those are limited obligation bonds, and those are secured by city facilities. And I think that's my last slide, if you have any questions.
It's good, helpful. Questions for Courtney? Go ahead, Dan.
A couple about the solid waste report. So the currently permitted cells are projected to last through 2042.
That's correct.
And you have land there that's not zoned. Two related questions. One, what's the average time, not counting zoning changes, that it takes now to site a new landfill?
It's about 10 years is what we anticipate, yes.
Okay.
It's a long process.
And the land that you own that is adjacent to the existing Haynesville landfill, Haynesville Road landfill, was it the subject of an arrangement that the city council entered into some years back with objecting neighborhoods about, commitments on what would be used for the landfill and what would not be?
Yes, at that time, I think it was, early, maybe late 1990s, early 2000s.
Early 2000s.
The early 2000s. Yes, that was part of those discussions with the neighboring community. And at the time, we did not rezone that piece at that point.
So that would be
That's right.
reopening a.
Yes.
Yes. And is that land within the city limits at this point?
Yes.
So it would be a city council
I'm confirming,
zoning
yes.
issue? All right. Thank you.
Yes, could I ask you a question that isn't on your presentation, but it pertains to Tanglewood, the Riverwalk project?
Yes.
Have those problems been solved so that that can get started?
So I have been in conversations with the developer. We've had meetings and we exchange emails and conversations. So I know they're still working through some design things are on their side, but he knows, he reaches out to me if he needs any assistance. So I've reached out to him, I guess it's probably been a week or two ago, and he said there was nothing that he's waiting on from me, that he's trying to get all his design stuff worked out.
Okay, thank you.
This design build paradigm you mentioned several times, is that something new?
It is a new delivery method. Instead of doing, your hard design, bid, build, what we're seeing is that we're not getting a lot of contractors that are interested in that traditional design, bid, build process. And so we've bid out projects and we're getting no contractors to bid, or we're getting one contractor to bid. And what we're seeing is that, especially for your larger projects, they really are leaning towards or prefer that design build, progressive design build, project delivery. And I think what we're hearing is there's more collaboration up front between the designer, the engineer, and that contractor, and they're working out a lot of these issues before they get into construction.
And it should be quicker.
And the intent
yeah,
is
whole
that you
reason
go,
for doing it.
right.
It would be more efficient.
That's the intent, that maybe you eliminate some of these change orders through the construction process because you're working through those things up front. You got a contractor's, point of view and the design engineer, and they're working through those things earlier rather than later.
And that paradigm would also involve minimal or less collaboration from the county.
Well,
Or not.
and when you say the county, you're saying like at a staff level or at a board level?
Both.
Both. I don't know, from a staff perspective, I don't know that it's less, collaboration with the engineer and the contractor than the other method. I mean, we're still very much involved. And on these projects that we're partnering with the county, we're still very involved and work with the county staff. As far as what the boards approve, I would say there's probably still the same amount of items that come before a board for approval. It's just different. Before you would approve a design contract, and then you'd approve a construction contract, and then maybe if there's any change orders. In this situation, you got one contract, and then you bring amendments. So you got a design build contract, and at first you're approving this phase one pre-construction services, and then you might have to approve procurement of equipment, and then the final guaranteed maximum price. So it's just a little
Right,
different
but
way.
we don't have to spec it or do a URS or anything, right?
When you say spec it, like,
We don't have to dig into the specifications or,
well, so a lot of that is we put together up front. Well, we've got a design build contract that's got specifications and the contract language of what we expect out of that design build team. And then, the contractor, there'll still be specifications and things when we
they handle that.
Yes.
User requirements. Okay, thank you.
and there'll be that collaboration with the owner and that design engineer. It's kind of just throughout the whole process. I'm pretty excited about this. It's new for us, but I think make it a very successful project.
Thank you.
Good. Other questions for Courtney? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All righty. I'll turn the meeting over to our county manager, and when we get finished, we'll do the last discussion item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon, Commissioner, staff, and guests. The items before you are for our November 20th meeting. Agenda item number 1 is a public hearing on an ordinance amendment proposed by Forsyth County modifying Chapter 6 of the Unified Development Ordinances to revise sign regulations for parks and recreation areas and an ordinance modifying Chapter 6 of the UDO. Dan Roberts, our project planner from Planning and Development, will brief this item.
All right, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Madam Vice Chair, and members of the board. So I'll be presenting UDO CC 30, which is a request to amend section 6.5.2.G.4 to revise sign regulations for parks and recreation areas open to the public. So as you know, the county is currently developing 200-acre agriculture and recreation park north of Tobaccoville. It's expected to draw out-of-town visitors. The park entrance is located in RS20 zoning, which limits the sign area to just 18 square feet. And the county believes that a larger sign would help visitors find the park more easily. The current regulations do allow parks and recreation areas larger than 1,000 acres to have freestanding signs of up to 75 square feet in area. And so the county believes that this provision should be expanded to include parks and recreation areas of 100 acres or more, such as the new park that is being developed. And planning staff agrees that a 75 square foot sign is appropriate, or up to, for such a large facility, and that would ensure that visitors can find their destination easily and safely. This was heard by the planning board on October 9, and there were no speakers in opposition, and the planning board voted unanimously to recommend approval. That's the end of my presentation. Any questions for me?
Is that a five-fold increase proposed in area?
Yes, so the current regulation is 18 square feet, so it would go up to 75 square feet.
And was there any consideration at the planning board about the aesthetics of that increase?
I don't recall any discussion for them about the aesthetics. No. No, sir.
Thank you.
One question, I hadn't thought of this before, but I know there are separate chapters or code provisions regarding electronic signage. Would that apply to this signage, or if we wanted to limit the signage that was eligible for this use to non-electronic signage, would that need to be inserted as a separate item?
Yeah, I believe that would be need to be a separate item because there's no differentiation between electronic and non-electronic in the sign ordinance.
Could you prepare language that would do that?
Certainly.
I'd appreciate it, because you get to an entirely different level of controversy when you've got a blinking, changing electronic sign.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Yes, sir.
I just comment as a neighbor, but I'm not a neighbor directly next door. There are very few houses there. There's one right next door to the immediate north. But I mean, I think I could potentially see an ag center having, an upcoming events kind of electronic signage be added at some point in the future. I mean, I think I'd probably see having that flexibility may be good. I don't think there'll be a lot of opposition to this particular location. It's not anywhere near a subdivision.
Different perspective.
Yeah, it is. Other questions for Dan? Thank you.
Agenda item number 2 is a resolution recognizing December 1st as World AIDS Day in Forsyth County, and staff will be here on Thursday to receive that. Agenda item number 3 is an approval of minutes for the meeting of November 6th, and those were emailed to you on Friday. Agenda item number 4 is a resolution adopting an updated countywide procurement policy. Terry Goodman, our Chief Financial Officer, will brief this item.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This item seeks your approval and adoption of the county procurement policy that is attached to the resolution. Several months ago, County Manager Robinson assembled a working group that included Deputy County Managers Price and Haney, County Attorney Watkins, and myself, to review our existing policy, which had been in place for roughly about 13 years. We solicited feedback from department managers as we worked through policy revisions. We also sought to incorporate guidance we had received from the board with regards to county procurement. The result of this work is what you have in front of you attached to the resolution. Today, I'll offer you just a high-level review of the policy and the principal considerations behind it. But any of the individuals on the working group are available to address specific questions you may have at any time. The policy overall, or the revised policy overall, really provides very few real policy changes. It seeks, or it mostly clarified language that was perhaps unclear or missing in the original policy, or it put into writing the way we actually had been administering the policy in recent years regardless. It did change a little bit of the approval process or approval flows. It clarified that the thresholds that are found in the policy, that when we look at the amounts that we're going to assess against those thresholds, that we're looking at the entire spend that a department intends to have with a given vendor for that category of goods. We also clarified some of the bidding requirements on service contracts. I think that came from really directions from the board. We've eliminated the ability for departments to have an out on policy, really by strengthening and being clearer on the process if they think they have an emergency situation where they couldn't comply with the policy. We've given more specific instructions for what they need to do if they have what they seem to think is an emergency. When crafting the policy, there's really three overarching policy considerations that we try to balance. I say balance, but at the same time, we put them in the order that you see in front of you. We have our statutory responsibilities that come straight from the statutes. There's a number of statutes that dictate how we are allowed to do our procurement, what we're required to do, and when. We also then have stewardship responsibilities, making sure that we're spending taxpayer dollars wisely and that we can properly account for them, and we have proper controls in place to make sure that the spending complies with the ordinance that you adopt each year. And then finally, but also importantly, we have mission responsibility, giving departments the ability to carry out the mission that they're tasked with that comes through the budget ordinance that, again, comes from your directives. Management's expectations that kind of existed behind the revisions to the policy were that we want to see departments be a bit more planned and managed in their procurement process, giving consideration to their needs throughout the year. They have sat down with their budget analysts, they have crafted their budget requests, and they have in mind an idea of how much they're going to need to spend in a given year, and we want to see them carry that same thought process through their procurement and not do it in bits and pieces, but go ahead and do the bidding, make sure they have the contracts that they need in place at one time during the year, so that we can find that to be the most efficient and cost-effective way for them to manage their procurement. We also want procurement practices to promote fair and open competition. We want as many vendors as possible to give us bids and give us an option, or have an option to provide the services and goods to us. Again, wanting to get the best price possible for the county. Coming straight from statute and always important is that goods and services procured must always serve a public purpose. And with rare exception, departments should procure the lowest cost option that meets their functional needs. Finally, we encourage departments whenever possible to collaborate with one another if they're using the same vendor for similar services, to try and work together and craft an agreement, an offer, a bid, or a contract that will cover services for more than one department. That's really all I have in terms of prepared remarks for you today. If you have any questions that we can address at this time, be glad to attempt to do that.
Just make a couple comments. I spent a good bit of time obviously I've made a number of discussions about this particular topic, and I spent a good bit of time with it. I've probably got about 15 or 20 minutes worth of just editorial kind of things, some back and forth kind of issues. And if it indulges the board, I talked to Gordon a little bit before the meeting, and we were talking about part of those. if no one minds waiting 2 weeks to do this again in the next cycle, I'd just like to go through those. I don't think you want to sit through 15 minutes of a little, there's an Exhibit B, there's notes that are in different places, how they're referenced, how they're so forth, and probably the only thing, and by the way, it is way, way much improved, and it is up to date and legal. I mean, it's up to date with current statutes. The charts are much easier to find. The limits and those kind of issues are very good. Probably as a new section, I'd probably be interested a little more in a discussion about when the specification development process. I mean, every department has different issues, but so that there's a better template for specifications, how they're included in the advertisement, and how they will be evaluated, the evaluation process. I will say in the discussions with Gordon, we were talking, and Chantel was there for part of it, that essentially we've really, in the last probably year, we've not had very many situations where we went through a lot of that. I mean, we've had good selection of bidders, and we have them today. I mean, on some projects that we've typically had a single bidder. So I think it's so much better, but if no one minds waiting 2 weeks to do a final piece of it, I'd appreciate that.
I don't have any issues with the timing, but I do have some, I guess, input and suggestions, especially as it relates to, and I appreciate the hard work because, I have also had my concerns about our procurement process as it relates to an inclusive process that enables the diversity of our community to be a part of our contracting and doing business with this county government. I think that, of course, I've probably beat on the county manager's door a time or two about hubs and trying to collect sufficient data so that we can be very clear with the public, especially as it relates to the point that I 100% agree around our stewardship with the citizens' tax dollars. And I think when we are looking at the diversity of Forsyth County, I think that we could be fully more representative of who we are as a community and how we are contracting and doing businesses. And I say all of that to make 2 points. One, I think having some insight from the North Carolina Hub office could also be very beneficial to any county's procurement policy. I think Charlotte-Mecklenburg recently revised their policy, and when I say recent, maybe within the past few years, to try and reflect some of the insight and recommendations from the North Carolina Hub office. Recently, I was in High Point, and there is a new study out called Prosperity by Design Report, and I'll try to get that report over to the county manager, and it just talks about the $2.6 billion economic impact of North Carolina historically underutilized businesses, and the highlight, and I won't, belabor with all of their data points. I'll give the report to you, but I do want to put on record this point that by collecting data and through collaboration, locales can implement inclusive procurement and contracting that expand opportunities, strengthen communities, and drive prosperity across the state. And I think that just about every Forsyth County citizen would be appreciative of our ability to be able to do that. And so, again, I'll get that report over, and hopefully we can take that into consideration too.
It's good. So in 2 weeks, we'll review again our next briefing.
Okay. And will you coordinate the follow-up meetings and communication that we'll work with?
Yes, thank you.
Sounds great. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Agenda item number 5 is a resolution adopting an updated countywide federal procurement policy. Kimberly Price Shore from our Finance Department will brief this item.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Forsyth County staff seeks the adoption of the updated county-wide federal procurement policy, Section 1.6, of all purchasing goods and services funded with federal funds. The primary change to this update policy is the increase of the simplified acquisition threshold, SAT, from $250,000 to $350,000. Per the federal uniform guidance, does not require formal bidding below this threshold. However, the county departments must still follow the state law and the county procurement policy, where it is stricter than the federal procurement policy. Does anybody have any questions?
Any questions? I read it. I had no problem with that.
Okay. Thank you.
Good, thank you.
Agenda item number 6 is a resolution authorizing use of privately raised funds to pay off the Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools debt to ESS Southeast LLC pursuant to the conditional forgiveness resolution of October 9th, 2025. Essentially what this is in the October 9th resolution, it stated that it requires the Board of Education and Board of County Commissioners to agree who the next entity would be to pay after the North Carolina Department of Instruction. And so the Board of Education sent a letter that was attached to this requesting that their next source of debt be sent to ESS Southeast, which is their substitute contractor. They have retained an attorney. Their interest and fees are significantly higher than the other debt that they have, which is the school nutrition fund. And so part of our forgiveness of up to the $5 million required your approval. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Please. I can understand why they're making the recommendation. I understand that the interest is presently accruing. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and that it is higher than the interest being charged for the debt to the nutrition fund. What has the amount of the debt to the nutrition fund increased or decreased?
It is my understanding they have not paid anything on, that was about $2 million, but they do have a plan to start paying that on a monthly basis, I believe beginning in January.
And that was my next question, was what is their plan
Yeah, and
to
she will,
address that?
the interim superintendent Moore will be here on Thursday and will provide an update to the board on their debt repayment plan as well as their budget.
And the reason I specifically raised that again, even in the face of a differential between those two debts in the interest rate, is that this is a dangerous time, I think, to have our nutrition fund not fully stocked up. So.
They have an excess of nutrition fund. I did tell her to be prepared to provide information on the nutrition fund, and she will also provide that on Thursday.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Yeah, my question was relative to the amount. I've been told, or it was shared in the Winston-Salem Journal, that they exceeded the $5 million that was raised.
So the last update that I received from Winston-Salem Foundation, I provided to you all at our last meeting. They had not received cash in hand of all of that yet. I will get an update from her to provide to you on Thursday.
Okay.
Yeah, I think their pledges exceed right at 5.6. But that's what's been paid plus pledges.
Yeah.
And
So,
so all the pledges have not been deposited into the Winston-Salem Foundation.
was there a timeline for the pledges?
Our resolution stated they have until December 31st for our forgiveness plan.
All right. Thank you. That was helpful.
Any other questions? Thank you. Agenda item number 7 is a resolution authorizing acceptance of a grant from the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality for the installation of sewer infrastructure in southeast Forsyth County, and a resolution authorizing an interlocal agreement with the Winston-Salem Forsyth County Utility Commission for the southeast Forsyth County sewer expansion project, and an amendment to the county capital projects ordinance to appropriate grant dollars. Kirby Robinson, our Community Economic Development Director, will brief this item.
Thank you, Madam Manager. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and Board. I feel like Courtney had a little bit of the punchline on this one, so I'll move through it a little more expeditiously than I otherwise would have, but please feel free to stop me if you have questions along the way. As background, as the board knows, the county received a directed projects grant. That's from the North Carolina General Assembly. It was part of the 2023 Appropriations Act. It was in the amount of $19.7 million. That comes to us in the form of a grant, which will be administered by the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality. The purpose of that grant would be to install sewer in southeastern Forsyth County. So the last time, I believe this was discussed in a morning session in January of last year, and Courtney shared the Utilities Commission in partnership with City County Planning and Greater Winston had sort of stepped back to say, we have the funds, how and where to use them. I think Wahlberg Road and Abbott's Creek were identified as areas in southeastern Forsyth County as opportunities for sewer expansion and where that would have the most impact. Since that time, as you've heard, the Utilities Commission has hired a consultant to help study the project, assist them with the procurement process. That total project, as I understand it, is estimated at $14 million. This is what it looks like. You saw the aerial earlier. The existing sewer lines, of course, are in green. The new sewer lines are sort of in orange here with the force main in purple. Lift station is the green box, and the new manhole on Wahlberg Road is in red. So again, the focus of that project right now is on Wahlberg Road. Involves the construction of that new infrastructure. Installation of sewer in that area will open it up for future development, which obviously creates jobs and enhances the county's tax base in the future. To access funds for the project, and this is part A of the resolution packet, the state requires us to pass a resolution accepting the grant and then committing to the terms and conditions contained in the funding offer. And as you've seen going through the agenda packet, it is a robust grant that is complex, and we're glad to have the Utilities Commission along to help us with that. Part B is the interlocal agreement, which is the mechanism by which the funds are sent. They, of course, proposed the design, build, construction, and delivery method, which you heard about earlier. The commission approved the interlocal agreement at their November 10th meeting. Under the terms of that agreement, they will design, construct, own, and maintain the new system. They'll be responsible for meeting the state's milestones for the project and complying with the terms and conditions of the grant. We will fund the project through regular drawdowns from the state. It is a reimbursement-based grant, so it is very important that we show progress because regular drawdowns with the state show them that we're moving and decrease the likelihood that our funding could change from the state. This is what the project timeline looks like, just at a granular level. This is what we've shared with the state, and they have agreed to. Their grant is actually based on the design, bid, build method. So we actually had to go to them and redesign the milestones, which is sort of a fun process to engage in with the state. But they've agreed to this with the Utilities Commission. Next steps would be really to start that conversation around the remaining funding. What happens in the Abbott's Creek area and what funding will remain available after the Wahlberg GMP is received. Part C of the resolution is just the budget ordinance that appropriates the grant funds. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions the board has.
One quick question. With the anticipated $14 million total, when the guaranteed maximum price is received, and we kind of firm that up, I'd kind of like to see about the exploration of the idea that, we have plenty of other sewer projects except we could apply elsewhere, and to see what we might have to do to go to a different project with that amount of money.
Yes, sir.
I'm sure that's happened before with kind of lump sums, not knowing the price, and
That's
it'd
right.
be great if we could, and we may need legislative action to authorize that balance.
Yeah, I know Deputy Manager Haney, right before the meeting, was talking about how we really need to form a work group with community and economic development, planning, utilities, and think through that process. So I think that's something we'll be working on here in the near future.
Okay, thanks.
Yes,
Other
sir.
questions?
Who has the other 300,000 in funds?
Well, you're right. So there was a $20 million direct appropriation. 19.7 is the actual amount that we can draw down. I believe that's a combination of administrative fees the state removes from that because they administer the grant. So it's not uncommon to have admin money in a grant. It's just that the state retains the admin money in this case.
Okay. Well, the presentation says local utilities funds if needed.
So when we initially had to build out a conceptual budget, and we said, we said this could be a $20 million project, what would happen if we got to, $19.7 million in actual expenditures and we had 300,000 more to go? we would explore other funding sources for that. That's something that, with the Wahlberg project, is not something that would happen. We would know GMP, we would know what the cost of that project is. It's possible we could have to explore other funding sources, if we were to get into a second phase of the project, and let's say that we wanted to go, or the board wanted to go all the way up to the $20 million investment, we'd have to find some other funding sources to cover that $300,000. But it's not something we've committed to at this point. We had to build out the conceptual budget up to $20 million when we submitted our request for funding.
So we don't have to worry about it now.
That was a long way of me saying that. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Other questions? Go ahead.
In fact, I just want to confirm that what you just said was that we can accept the 14 point what have you million once the final price is confirmed without specifically committing to any specific use of the remaining 20 million.
That's right. So I had a conversation with the state folks around this, and their recommendation was to go ahead and request the full amount. And the reason for that is that they want us to show progress towards that. It makes it less likely the state could pull back those funds. So that was their recommendation, to go ahead and submit for the full amount. The Wahlberg is obviously the larger portion of that. It does not commit us to spending up to $20 million.
So what are you proposing? And is it contained in this resolution that we commit to with regard to the remaining funds?
No, sir. I think what we've told the state is we've built a conceptual budget that would show how we could spend up to $20 million. Once we move past that, it's we're looking at a specific project here that would be hopefully up to or less than $14 million. So I'm not proposing anything above that at this time. There are two components. One is that we got to draw down from the state. We have to be awarded the grant. That's the 19.7.
Sure.
Second is the second part where we're saying to the Utilities Commission, we're going to design and construct the Wahlberg project, which we estimate to be $14 million. So that's where we are at this point. There's, not to my knowledge, any commitment above just the Wahlberg project, which we actually, if you were to get GMP back, and let's say it's $36 million, we probably just wouldn't do or have to find other money for.
Yeah. Well, and in fact, what I'm conceptually concerned about is the prospect of agreeing to something that would require us to accept and spend the 5 point something million remaining exclusively on a project within this area. If, for example, the most reasonable next project came in at another $14 million budget, then we would be committing to diverting funds from other projects that had been identified as priority projects within the county. And I don't think that's something we want to do in advance.
And the county attorney can correct me, I don't think that's something we're committing to in this action. I think we've told the state, based on their recommendation, that we'd like to request the full funding amount, and then we're going to request that in chunks. It's a reimbursement-based thing, and we're going to build in the Wahlberg project first, which we estimate to be $14 million. If we were to leave the remaining balance on the table, I don't think there's any commitment on our part to then use that on another project. I think it's something that would be available to us if the state is still has it. I'm not sure I'm answering your question, but if I'm not, I can get back to you.
Clearly, we as a county, we have no additional projects we have no sewer projects going on. This is all through the Utilities Commission. I mean, it's their projects. The authorizing legislation did use the word Southeast Forsyth County on purpose. That was
Yes.
done. So the question becomes, if the project, no one knew at the time the 20 million was discussed with the state, had any idea what the cost would be. It was like, well, 20 million ought to cover it. So if it does come in less, that was my first question, then we certainly would like to be able to use those infrastructure funds from the state, that's roughly 6 million, to do something else. And once we know that, my question is what may have to be done? Would there be restrictions on the something else? Could it be in Southeast, Forsyth County, which we already know, this current line could be extended below, because that was in the original deciding what to do when. It's another longer period of time. That's why we did this shorter one first. But if we could do that, that's an option. Or there's some clear, since the bypass is finished, that is also sort of believed to be a site in some land in 2040, in the Board 2045 plan, is to actually expand into the northeast. That's leaving the southeast, and the question would be, is there a way that we could make that happen if that were the next positive project? I think that's kind of what I think we are. I don't think we're obligated, we're clearly not, this is not doing anything except, let's get this project going, start spending the money, let's get it done. We'll get a guaranteed maximum price in a year, and then we'll know.
That's all I wanted confirmed, is that that's the only
Oh, yeah,
obligation we're taking out. As long as the answer to that is yes, then I'm okay. I have no concerns.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kirby.
Agenda item number 8 is a resolution awarding a revenue contract to Keefe Commissary Network LLC for on-site inmate commissary services for the Law Enforcement Detention Center. Stephen Yantz, the Sheriff's Office Director of Business Operations, will brief this item.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the board. This agenda item is to request authorization to enter into a 3-year revenue contract with Keefe Commissary Network for the on-site commissary services at the detention center, starting January 1st, 2026, and lasting until December 31st, 2028. This is based on a recently completed request for proposals issued on September 10th, and bids were due October 9th. Of the 4 vendors provided proposals that also attended the mandatory pre-bid conference. Based on those proposals and the recommendations from purchasing, all vendors did meet the minimum requirements, and we did select the vendor that proposed the highest commission rate, which is the incumbent Keefe Commissary Network.
Can I ask you one quick question? And looking at your bid summary, I noticed in, I guess, 23, 24, and 25, the years that just passed, the commission rate was 45, 37, 35%.
Yes, sir.
And I was just curious, when this was bid before, is this bid, this current one for the next 3 years, is it locking that 45% in for each of the 3 years?
It is, yes, sir.
Did we not do that before when this project was bid, since the commission rates varied each year?
It was, from my understanding, those changed largely due to the inflation rates that they were seeing. They were trying to keep the cost of the items for the inmates still kind of reasonable. Also, they completed a study, a revenue study as well, and wanted to bring in some different services and items, and they agreed on a lower rate at that time. But for this contract, yes, sir, it's 45% for all 3 years.
So essentially, we initiated decisions, we in the sheriff's office in this case, initiated decisions to keep the prices lower and gave up commission rates in 24 and 25. It was a choice we made, not some kind of arrangement from the vendor.
That is
The
correct.
vendor was going to pay, they're going to pay 45. If you want to make some switches with them, they would accommodate that.
That is correct, yes, sir.
And obviously, that could happen again in the next 3 years, I suspect.
Let's hope
But it
not.
would be up to you all. It would be up to the
Correct, yes,
sheriff's
sir.
office to do that, to give up some of the commission rates back.
That is correct, yes,
And
sir.
I am saying that correctly?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Other questions?
No
What
questions,
does-
just a comment. The McDaniel Supply Company, I don't know those folks, so just wanted to put it on record.
Gotcha.
What does attachment B say about the amount of insurance? You've got an indemnification clause on the part of the contractor, and then you've got a limitation of liability clause for the benefit of the contractor, except for the amount of coverage. What is that amount?
I do have that. I can provide that. Yes, sir. I don't have it with me.
Is it a CGL policy?
Certificate of insurance, yes, sir. But I'm not sure of the coverage amount.
Okay. If you would do that, I'd appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen.
Agenda item number 9 is a resolution authorizing execution of a purchase order to Emergency Transportation Associates, LLC, for the purchase of 3 new cab and chassis units with remount of ambulance bodies. Jonathan Markle, our Automotive Services Manager, will brief this item.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. The item before you today is a resolution for 3 remounts of ambulance bodies. This was bid through City County Purchasing, with bids closing on Tuesday, October 14th. The winning bidder was Emergency Transportation Associates with the lowest price and the lowest lead time. We do have 3 ambulances picked out that would be remount. They would be ambulances 32, which is currently down for an engine replacement, ambulance 34, which is down for engine and transmission issues, and either ambulance 23 or 30 that are old, both higher mileage, and at the time of the remount, we would make the decision on which one that would be. This request is for those 3 ambulances, those 3 remounts totaling a price of $456,273. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Not with regard specifically to this item, but in the context of how we're doing in terms of keeping enough units up and running to match our available personnel. Can we get a kind of a rolling report on that for the past few years to see how we're trending over time?
Absolutely. Ask Chief Stewart or Swing to come up here, and happy to answer that question for you.
Thank you.
What was your question, sir?
Basically, I know that we've got a couple of challenges with our emergency medical services. Staffing is one, equipment is another. And in the context of looking at this item, it occurred to me that this might be an apropos time to ask for a sort of a rolling status report of how we've been doing over the past few years in achieving that need.
I can give you a high level, but I can work on a report for later. High level, last year, this time, we were less ambulances, more people. I can tell you today, we've staffed every available ambulance we have, which is 19 units on the road. And we've been consistent that way for the last month or so, thanks to his efforts and your efforts giving us the funding to get these ambulances, which will lead to more discussions for more trucks. But that's the high level, is that we've incrementally gotten better, and we'd like to keep heading that direction. But I can work on a report.
And we're going to provide an EMS update at Thursday's bi-monthly morning session.
All right, very good. Thank you.
I've got your insurance information and appreciate that, but why is there such a disparity between the cost of materials and labor between these parties 4 parties that bid? If you have any explanation.
So I actually asked Emergency Transportation Associates that exact question, is how are you so cheap? What I will say is Atlantic Emergency Solutions and Spartan Fire are not remount companies. They are ambulance resale companies, and they are starting to offer remounts as an option, but they're just getting into it, and they're also paying third parties to do the remounts. So they've got a markup there as well. Carolina Remounts is a little bit newer, and they are just trying to get their name out there a little bit more. They've been in business for about 5 years, and they're working through the process. ETA is just, they've got their system down very well.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 10 is Mr. Markle's as well. It's a resolution authorizing execution of a purchase order to Atlantic Emergency Solutions, Inc. for the purchase of 1 new ambulance.
During the same bid process, we offered an alternate solution for the ambulance companies to provide a bid for a replacement, a complete new unit with a new body, new cabin chassis, so a complete new ambulances. 2 of the bidders, Atlantic Emergency Solutions and Spartan Fire, participated in that bid. Atlantic Emergency Solutions bid a price of $240,181. After reviewing the options, there was a few things that needed to be changed in that quote to include a 120-volt HVAC system and other changes to the body itself to meet our CAAS compliance. Lastly, we also added graphics so the ambulance will be ready to go when it hit the ground. So that took the price of the $240,181 that they bid up to $256,754, still lower than the bid from Spartan Fire. The good thing about this ambulance is it is a stock unit that they've got to make these changes to. It arrived on the ground to Atlantic last week, so they can start making the changes needed, and we should have delivery potentially by the end of the year or early January. Any questions?
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good news.
Agenda item number 11 is a resolution authorizing execution of an agreement with Aquatech Pool Management LLC for lifeguard services at the Peter S. Brunstetter Aquatic Center at Tanglewood Park. Constantine Stamati, our Assistant Director of Business Operations at Parks, will brief this item.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you for the chance to brief this agenda item. The scope of the resolution is addressing lifeguard services at Tanglewood Pool. Regarding the purchasing process, an RFP was issued and shared directly with 12 businesses, in addition to a general solicitation by City County Purchasing. As a result of this action, 4 bids were received and opened by purchasing. And after being evaluated by county staff, Aquatech was selected as, pool management was selected as the lowest responsible and responsive bid. Worth noting that Aquatech has provided lifeguard services for the past 3 pool seasons, and they are in good standing with us. The total contract cost is $712,842.75, and that will cover us for 3 pool seasons. One additional details I would like to add is that the contract not to exceed amount was calculated based on the max possible operational hours for the pool. And however, since the pool schedule depends on Winston-Salem-Forsyth County school calendar, the county reserved the right to adjust the contract amount and the operational hours to align with the school schedule while maintaining the proposed bill rate. So we expect that this provision will optimize the budget by aligning the contract amount as close as possible to the actual cost. I'll be happy to take any questions.
Any questions? Thank you very much. Constantine.
Agenda item number 12 is a resolution accepting an offer to purchase county-owned real property by negotiated offer, advertisement, and upset bids procedure. Kirby Robinson, our Community Economic Development Director, will brief this item.
Good afternoon again. As background on this item, and I'll list a couple of things that I did not put on the slide here, but if you rewind to, I believe, 1992, the county conveyed its interest in the Big House Gaines property to Family Services. So it wasn't a lease or anything like that. The county sold the property to Family Services. That deed contained a reversionary clause where if they essentially ceased operations there, the property would come back to the county. So I just want to be clear about that. That's how the property came back to the county. When we found out that they had vacated the property, they provided notice to the city, not to the county. And so it took us a little bit of time to catch up with them and figure out that the property was vacant. When that happened, the board acted to say, we see this property as surplus and we want to sell it for fair market value. And that property then transferred back to the county, I believe in July of this year. So at that meeting, we solicited offers. You received, let me back up here. You approved an offer for, I shouldn't talk without slides sometimes about timelines, but in March, you solicited offers for the property. At your July 24th meeting, you approved advertisement of an offer that came out of that solicitation for the 2050 Big House Gaines Boulevard property. So I apologize for getting that a little confused. Of course, that's the Skyland Elementary property. That initial offer was for $150,000. That kicked off the legal process, which is advertisement and upset bid, and that process began on August 11th. You received several upset bids throughout that process, which was a neat thing to see. That is not something that is normal to that process. I believe it went back and forth 4 or 5 times during upset bid. The last and highest offer was received from the Feeling Friends Community Center of Culturally Responsive Emotional Intelligence, Inc., and that was in the amount of $210,050. You can see an aerial view of the property on the right. It's roughly 5.3 acres in size, and is sort of a main building and an annex building. In terms of process, you know, if you step back, there have been a couple of actions that have gotten you here. One was the action to surplus and solicit offers for the property. The second action was to advertise an offer that you received for the property, and this is sort of the last action in the sale process. So that it's run through the upset bid process. You have a last and highest offer, and that buyer has placed the required 5% deposit with the clerk to the board. If approved, so if you approve this today, the county will execute the purchase and sale agreement that is attached to your resolution. And after that, that will establish the effective date of the agreement. The buyer will have 30 days after that date to close on the property. We've spent some time with the buyer. They have reviewed, agreed to, and executed the purchase and sale agreement. And they have indicated they are ready to close on the property once the agreement is fully executed. So this sort of bookends the upset bid process, and I'm happy to answer any questions the board has.
Any questions for Kirby?
No questions, but we're voting on Thursday, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Right.
Did I say today?
That's okay.
My timeline was terrible
Sure.
within
I
these
didn't want them
slides.
upset.
Thank you.
All righty, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Agenda item number 13 is Kirby's as well. It's a resolution authorizing publication of an offer to purchase county-owned real property by negotiated offer, advertisement, and upset bids procedures.
Thank you. Commissioners, you'll recall that in October of 2023, the new courthouse opened. And so since that time, the Hall of Justice property has been vacant. At your December 19th, 2024 meeting, the board unanimously directed the county manager to sell the Hall of Justice property for fair market value. And at that same meeting, you approved a brokerage services agreement with NAI Piedmont Triad LLC. And I will say that's a little bit of an experiment. The board has not used a commercial realty firm in the past, but these guys got to work, and they got to work quickly. The property's been listed since January of this year. In touching base with NAI, and we've kept up, of course, during the year, they've met with over 100 prospects on the building and shown the property 25 times. So it's generated a lot of interest out there, and that was really part of the idea of using a commercial real estate firm, is to get national exposure to the building. So you have received an offer to purchase the property. The board received an offer from Med Solutions Compounding Pharmacy, Inc. A couple of specifics there. The purchase price is proposed at $2,650,000. There is a 5% deposit, which is consistent with the statute, and the buyer has paid that deposit to the clerk to the board. They proposed a 3-month due diligence process with one 30-day extension. That's important because when that 3 months and one 30-day extension would run out, that's when the buyer can no longer cancel the contract. That is fairly consistent with what you saw at the Sturmer Park property. Commercial transactions of that size are going to have longer due diligence. When we're on the selling side, we want to minimize that as much as possible for a transaction of this size. That's fairly standard. Then you'd go into a permitting period if the buyer needed to pull any permits or work with planning or inspections. They would be doing that during that time. That would be 3 months of one 30-day extension. And then closing would happen 30 days after the permitting period. I'll say that the proposed use is still, I think, somewhat in development. And during due diligence, I think that's when a buyer would flesh that out more specifically. But right now, the proposed use is a mixed use of office, retail, and a compounding pharmacy. Just a reminder that under the brokerage services agreement that the board approved, the county would owe a 6% commission to NAI for a co-brokered sale. There was a tiered fee structure in the contract, and the buyer is represented as well, so it's a co-brokered sale. There are other amounts due under that contract should the board decide to do something completely different with the property. If you had an offer and let's say you decided to donate it to whatever, there are fees that are due under that contract, just as a reminder, up and until that contract terminates at the end of December. An analysis of that offer, the property is currently priced at $5.5 million. Like any other commercial property, sometimes you put a price out there and you sort of see what happens with it. That's backed up a little bit by the land value, which based on the property tax card is estimated to be at $2 million. I'll say we've received a lot of interest over the past year, and you've seen that. NAI has met with over 100 prospects. That's not just fielding phone calls. That's literally going and meeting with, and that's resulted in 25 showings. But we've struggled to convert that interest into an offer. The market feedback has been that the cost of redevelopment, especially for multifamily, which I think is initially what we thought we might see there, is very high. I'll say that some buyers have shared their due diligence with us, which is at a conceptual level. You could maybe do 70 to 80 units in the building if somebody were to develop it for multifamily. The reno budget for that is looking, and it is, again, it varies widely depending on, what type of renovation or redevelopment you would do. Somewhere in the neighborhood of $250,000 to $280,000 a unit. That's what it would cost to potentially renovate that, and that's with minimal exterior renovations. And so those are contractors going through the building and developing that pricing. And again, that's coming from buyers, so you sort of look at it through that lens. But that is relatively high. The estimated cost of demolition, we sort of looked at that and said, is the building a benefit to the site? Is it better to sell the property without the building or not? The cost of demolition is also relatively high. You got $1 million to $2 million of demo costs there, and a fair amount of disruption to downtown as well. One of the other things we've heard is, the current cost of funds, the cost to go and borrow money, and the specialty nature of the building has deterred potential buyers that are interested in adaptive reuse. And I say that because it's a shorter building, but it's sort of a wide building. And so if you look at redeveloping that as housing, that's a challenge, because the wider building, it makes it tough to develop those floor plates. Whereas if you step back and look at, for instance, the old BB&T building, that's taller and skinnier, that's easier to develop as housing, is my understanding. The proposed use, that's the offer in front of you, the proposed use of that would not require rezoning, which is a benefit to a buyer and to a seller, that those are acceptable uses within the CBD. And it would move the property from non-taxable into a taxable status. And just to note that, the cost of ownership of that building is relatively high. And, even when you try to scale that building back, and General Services does a wonderful job at this, you still have to run minimal systems. You still have folks that have got to maintain it. You got service contracts. Just the age and the size of the facility make that a relatively expensive building to hold on to. If you were interested in pursuing this offer and intend to accept it, it would go through the same process that the Skyland property went through, and that's upset bid. It would be advertised for the statutorily required 10-day upset bid period. Any subsequent bid would have to increase the initial amount by 10% of the first $1,000 and 5% of the remainder. That's the statutory language for upset bid. So the current minimum offer required to upset the bid that you received would be $2,782,550. Place an upset bid, bidders would place 5% of their offer amount with the clerk to the board. The last and highest offer would come back to the board. So again, it's a two-step process there. You intend to accept an offer and you advertise it. I think I read in the paper that you would be voting Thursday to potentially accept that. That's not the case. It's a two-step process that goes through upset bid. Last and highest offer would come back to the board for approval. You may reject all offers at any time. And I put this in here in case folks are watching and are interested in engaging in the upset bid process. This is a little different. They're welcome to reach out to me, but it's probably more productive for them to contact your brokerage team directly, and I've listed their contact information there. So that's a lot to digest. I'm happy to answer any questions the board may have. I will say that the NAI broker intended to be here today, but unfortunately is ill and was unable to attend. So if there are any questions for them, we can certainly follow up after the briefing.
Any questions?
Is the prospective buyer the local pharmacy here in town or a national franchisor?
It's local. So the Med Solutions has acquired one other property. They have some experience in doing this. A little bit of a different building. This is over near the Haynes headquarters, and it's a $5 million building or so. But it is the local group, is my understanding. And they did submit an offer from their bank showing they're well capitalized and able to complete the sale.
My question in addition to that, was this an expansion for them? I'm thinking about jobs.
I understand what you're saying there. I'm not sure. I think they're still fleshing some of that out. I mean, I think a lot of it would be investment from the sense that we can renovate and lease.
Okay.
But there sounds like there is a component of their business that could be there as well.
Yeah, and while you're asking the question, do they plan to stay on Westgate and transition here, or are they going to keep both locations?
Sure. I can certainly ask. Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you.
Other questions?
I think my question is based upon, was there any, I guess, intent in discussion with this group that they were trying to do affordable housing? I think now it's very clear that, that is probably not doable as it relates to a for-profit group versus a not-for-profit group trying to do something to, help us collectively in Forsyth County. So do you have any, feedback from them around any initial thought of were they trying to do affordable housing, but just found out that as a for-profit group that it just was not realistic?
I don't think that was an initial plan of theirs. When the board advertised it, I think you said you wanted fair market value for us. It didn't really put any goals around, we want to see this, we want to see that there. And so they looked at it as a commercial property. I don't think they looked at it for affordable housing. The folks that did look at it for workforce housing couldn't make the financials work without some other injection of cash.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Kirby.
Agenda items 14 and 15 are refunds by the tax assessor collector. 14 is a resolution approving refunds in the amount of $18,648.84, and 15 is in the amount of $55,195.86. Agenda item number 16 is an ordinance approving franchises for residential and small business solid waste collection, transportation, and disposal services, and adding optional recycling services in unincorporated areas of Forsyth County. Minor Barnett, our Environmental Assistance and Protection Director, will brief this item.
Good afternoon. Thank you for this opportunity to have a brief discussion about some of the people's business. Since 1973, Forsyth County has governed garbage collection services in the unincorporated area under a franchise ordinance. The current map is displayed here. It's color-coded to show the service areas for the 3 existing franchise holders that provide this valuable service out in the county. What this represents is what is left of the original 15 service areas from 1973, and as you would probably imagine or expect, a lot of those areas have been partially or fully annexed into some of the municipalities. So this map looks very different than it did 50 years ago, 52 years ago. So the 3 areas shaded in green are serviced by ABC Garbage. The blue areas are serviced by a rural garbage service. And the other areas, whatever that magenta color might be, are serviced by GFL Environmental. Quick snapshot of the current state of the service. I'm pleased to report that we are at an all-time high for participation among the houses in the county. There are over 25,000 households in the unincorporated areas, and over 18,000 are currently using the garbage service, so that's a good thing. For 2024, the 3 franchise holders collected over 15,500 tons of garbage, and that's an average of 1,740 pounds per household, which is 86% of a ton per household. A condition of having a solid waste franchise or a franchise to collect garbage is to offer a separate optional recycling collection service with a separate fee for that service. There are currently over 4,900 households subscribing to that service, which is about 27% of the existing garbage customers, or 19.6% of the total number of households in the unincorporated areas. In 2024, they collected over 1,300 tons of recyclable materials for the year, which is an average of 453 pounds per household per year. And the unnecessary comment below that is just to demonstrate that the curbside collection of recyclables in the county resulted in collection of more than twice as much recyclable materials compared to what was dropped off at our 3 convenience centers. The final term of the current franchise ends at the end of December, at the end of next month. What we're proposing for your consideration is the award of new franchises to the existing franchise holders with an initial term of 3 years and two-year extensions. That will take us through the end of 2032 if we don't decide or they don't decide to change anything between now and then. Proposing to lock down the base rate for service at $17.32 a month for weekly collection service. That's the rate that was adopted back in May, which was the first time we'd adjusted the rate in many years. Also recommending that we discontinue the quarterly review of diesel fuel cost and the fuel surcharge and replace that with an annual adjustment based on the consumer price index. And the only other change is to increase the rent that they can charge to rent an optional garbage cart from $3 a month to $5 a month. That $3 a month rental fee predates my involvement with this franchise ordinance, which started 20 years ago. And so those carts are really expensive to provide, and if they rent them to customers, they're required to maintain them. And so I think $5 a month is a more fair fee for them to charge. And the last item on this slide is that we will continue to require them to offer recycling collection service in order to have a franchise to be paid to collect garbage. I think that's all I have.
Any questions?
Do you have insurance certificates for auto, CGL, and workers' comp from all of these existing contractors?
I'd like to ask the county attorney to confirm that that is something that we'll be requiring in the new agreement that becomes effective January 1st of 2026. Am I correct about that?
It is. They were not required in the previous agreements? Just asking.
I don't think so. I think they have those insurance coverages, but I don't think we've ever required the documentation you just mentioned.
Well, they're required by law to have at least one of them, the workers' comp, correct?
That's my understanding.
Okay. That's all for now. Thank you.
Thank you.
A couple of quick questions. One, optional cart rental, that's a second or third cart. That is what we're talking about?
No. Currently and historically, the subscribers have been allowed to provide their own trash cans or carts, or if the franchise holder that provides service to them offers rental, it's optional both ways. The franchise holders have the option to offer the rental, but we don't require them to do that. But if they do, we have always controlled the rate that they're allowed to charge. So some people still use two 32-gallon trash cans, like the round kind with the round lid. A lot of people are using carts. You know, the round old-style trash cans are not compatible with the automated side loader trucks that most of the service providers are using, at least on some of their routes. Those require carts, and the carts come in different sizes. So there's some options there, but anyway, I'm not sure if I just answered your question.
You did, actually. The answer surprised me. I didn't realize that that we were allowing such a multiplicity of, cart and container types. I think maybe I should talk with you offline. Thank you.
Be glad to. Thank you.
Other questions? I think the annual fuel adjustment is a good idea.
Yeah, it will streamline the administrative work for them and for us, especially for them. Right now it's hard for their customers to utilize some of the auto pay, bill paying options available to them because there's the risk that every 3 months the rate could change. Depends on what diesel fuel costs are doing in the region. And so they really welcome this opportunity for improved, administrative work.
Good. Thank you.
There's been not a lot, but in one area, I believe it's south part of the county, south, maybe southwest. Just some minor problems about pick up at required time to pick up? Has those things been resolved?
They appear to be back on the normal schedule at this point and have been for over a month, maybe close to 2 months. They're in the process of reorganizing their routes, and that will go into effect December 1st. What they're doing is adding an additional truck to be used in our county and making the routes smaller to make it easier for them or more feasible for them to complete the route on each day that they are scheduled. There have been some things that are outside all of the haulers' control, not just this company, but the other companies too, that have made it difficult for them to stay on schedule, like delays at the landfill unloading and some other things like that. But yes, it does appear that they've gotten the service back on track as far as the scheduling. And we didn't hear from very many people who had collections that were completely missed. What we did hear were some people that had collection delayed by a day, and most of those were scheduled for Wednesday, but some weeks they were collected on Thursday. And it's understandable that it frustrates people when that happens. And the company's been in close communication with us, explaining to us what they're doing as far as corrective action. I think they have it back on track, and I think adding another truck and making the route smaller is going to enhance the service.
It wouldn't skip altogether, it's just like a day, or
most of them. A few of them, might have been, but most of them were reaching out to us because there were a few weeks in a row that they were collected a day late. And in some neighborhoods, it appears to be a big deal if their cart or trash can is at the curb, for 2 days instead of just 1 day waiting to be collected. A lot of people find that to be unacceptable. And we've made sure the company understands where those areas are as they are brought to our attention. And I've been pleased with their responsiveness.
is there something in the contract that speaks to if there's persistent problems?
It's not worded that way. It does say that, same day collection means the same day of the week every week. And if there's an interruption in service for any reason, that it's restored as quickly as possible.
That's all. Okay.
I just want to take a moment, it's a bit off subject, but I want to thank you and your staff for cleaning up Broad Street and also for Poff Lane encampment. And it was a long process. I understand it takes a long time to complete something like that, but thank you all very much. It's nice not to have to hear those complaints.
I appreciate the feedback. Those were two very big and difficult cases that we worked on, and because of some things that we are aware of and have observed recently, we're continuing to do weekly visits to the property on Poff Lane to make sure make sure nothing happens out there that doesn't need to happen.
Good.
But
Thank
it is
you.
both those properties are in very good condition compared to where we started.
Right, thanks.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, next minor.
Agenda item number 17 is our October financial report. It was a placeholder while staff finalizes our closing, and so that will be uploaded before Thursday's meeting. I do want to go back to number 1 because Chris Murphy has an answer in regards to the sign regulations.
Commissioner Bessie, it's one of those things where I couldn't find the answer quick enough while we were still on the item, but I did want to go back. There is a specific provision under the county sign ordinance related to on-premise ground signs in the YR, AG, MH, and RS districts that for certain uses provide the size limitation. Of course, this text amendment that's coming before us is looking to provide the exemption for the park property of 200 acres. But under that same provision, under illumination, it says internally illuminated signs are not permitted for these uses except such internally illuminated signs which existed as of April 26, 1993. So an electronic message board sign is considered internally illuminated. So this would not, the county would not be able to install an internally illuminated sign at this park.
Thank you. That does answer my question, and I appreciate it.
And our last item is a discussion item, and that is about the size and weight regulations for commercial truck transportation.
Yes, I will share this. About several months ago, I received an email from the Coalition Against Bigger Trucks, CABT. And they were particularly asking us to consider a resolution and actually to contact our congressman, in this case, Congressman McDowell, and he happens to serve as a freshman representative on the U.S. House Transportation Committee. And apparently there are two freshman legislators from North Carolina that serve on that committee. And this particular, I asked actually after the first email, and I looked them up first online and read a little bit about them. And then I actually asked the person that had been communicating with me. In fact, I sent an email to Congressman McDowell's office, encouraging them after I found out who was paying their bills, who was behind the Coalition Against Bigger Trucks. And it turns out, they said, they were very upfront and said the primary sponsor were railroads. The railroads were interested in not having the freight move from rail into big trucks. And of course, their conversation is that you're basically these are longer trucks and obviously heavier trucks because they can carry more things. So they certainly talk about the damage to roadways with heavier vehicles, a big issue, and they also talk about safety, the very safety of having lots and lots of larger trucks to get around on particularly anytime there's a two-lane road involved. So in part of that conversation, they actually asked, well, do you have a draft, actually resolution? And so this is sort of their draft resolution, and you will notice that the NACO, that the National Association of Counties, has been opposed to this for a long time, and as you know, many counties actually are in the road and bridge business and would be very, very interested in that. This is the reason we're being asked, even though we have nothing to do with roads and bridges, was because we have a congressman who was on the committee, and they'd love to have a resolution from us to support that endeavor with him. So if there's interest in that, we could approve the resolution on Thursday. And they've also asked, they actually sent me a copy of Lee County has adopted a similar resolution, and actually their commissioner chair just sent an editorial to the paper there in Lee County to basically talk about as an awareness kind of issue to make people understand that. So for any other questions, discussions, or your thoughts of whether we want to include this on the agenda for Thursday?
Yeah, I got some, or maybe some observations and comments when something like this comes up. It's suspect to me to who's behind it and why. And to add on to that, of the word has been, I'd seen an email a while back that there's been a push for this, and apparently it is from somewhere. So after seeing it going to be on the agenda, then this morning it was rolling my mind enough that I opened the iPad up before I went out to work. And so what I found in the iPad was kind of interesting to me, the information that was in there. And that was that it indicated that retail businesses is one of the big pushers of it. Name two or three of big ones, so bound to have been many more. And it sounded like to me, or it was pretty clear that this retail group, whoever was representing them, and trucking companies were at odds over it. And it was just, but apparently it's more to where the push is coming from than what information you had got. When I see those kind of things surface, I'm suspect of many things. So, and also I looked, I knew all of the states they talked about, they got now, in North Carolina on certain roads, they can pull the double trailers.
Yes.
And in some of the states, I believe it was about 12 western states, pull the triples. And, but any of the states can stop I believe they can. In some instances, North Carolina don't allow, they got the doubles, but the doubles is only allowed on interstates and other main roads. Some of the roads are not. And to my surprise, that having been in California once, long time back, they allowed triples to be pulled there. And I thought California would be up at the top of the list. Well, they're not on the list now, and I was surprised at that a little. But I guess some of the western states, the reason the triples are allowed. But now triples are, if you've seen any of those before, you trying to pass one or one passing you, now you can kind of wonder about that a little bit, but I don't, there's some reasoning behind this, but apparently the people that's opposing it don't have much confidence in federal regulators about what's safe and not. Anybody that's had very much to do with regulators are, in my book, they're pretty tough and beyond. So I don't think the heavy trucks, that much difference in weight, how much that would, they're going to wear the roads out anyway. Going to wear the roads out if you run more trucks on it as if you run the bigger trucks and maybe less of them. But with what my level of confidence of what I have in the federal government, I got enough to think that they would think about this a long time before they would decide to implement the things that's in here. So
I will say one thing I failed to mention is that the legislation itself, that's as proposed federally, is giving states an option to do this. A state could say no also, but the federal government right now, no one can say yes. This legislation would be discretionary for states, could say yes or no. So a state could say yes. So it's even a little different than, I mean, it's a little more state control centered that this gets giving them the opportunity to say yes or no, whereas right now you can't say yes.
Speed is probably the most prominent thing for all kinds of accidents, trucks and cars both. And when I get on the interstate, I get on the right lane. I try to get out of everybody's way. And if there's any open spots, if you watch the vehicles, if they see an open spot, they're going in and out. And they just barely get by some. But I stay out of their way. I stay over on the right side, and they don't want to stay behind me, so they go on.
Yeah, I think the healthy skepticism about the motivations of all the parties involved is a good thing. But I did have occasion years ago to do some research on what was then a proposal to allow the twin trailers on North Carolina roads. And my recollection was that the safety data was pretty compelling, that they were more dangerous and they took longer to brake, and harder to maneuver and more subject to jackknifing. I haven't had occasion to review that in years. I don't know if the data is still as clear, but I would be concerned about increasing the length of the double trailers, and think this is a reasonable thing for us to look at. I might suggest putting it on for consideration the next cycle, give us all a chance to kind of do a little more digging on that.
Sure. Any other comments?
I support that. And I dig a little more just for my own.
That's good.
And then, if I think it's worth an observation, I'll make an observation about it.
I got it. Anything else? All right, we stand adjourned.